because they would feel like they will disintegrate as a being. So you have to chip away at their cognitive distortions a little bit at a time, okay, to help them shift to realize they are not who they think they are.
Right.
Ram Dass
or who
statement
they program themselves to be,
exactly.
or
They are not.
who outside forces have programmed them to be.
That's right. So they have a belief about this is who I am. I'm a schizophrenic. I'm manic depressive. I'm an anxiety. I'm full of anxiety. I'll never get over my anxiety. I'm a depressed person. I'm an angry person. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. Okay?
And the more they talk about it, the more it's reinforced.
The more it's reinforced.
Exactly. The more the pathways in the brain are dug in deeper.
Exactly. So my job is to say, wait a second. Do you think we can take a look at that, and maybe who you think you are is not who you are? Maybe there's more to you than just a label, okay? And that's what I try to do. The other thing, with my clients, the other thing I learned at the prison was that there was very little difference. If you peeled away the fact that they were dope fiends and drug addicts and all of that, there was very little difference on a human level between them and me.
Right.
Okay? And so I wrote a paper, again, back then, called Dope Fiend Irrationality. It Takes One to Know One. Because I was identifying with the irrational beliefs that these guys were carrying around. They were totally false. They had defined themselves as dope fiends, okay? And I saw much more to them than the fact that they happened to learn how to take dope when they were under stress, or they learned that in their communities. You know, I dealt with people in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York City, you know, the hotbed of all of those communities, which a lot of drugs, and they never questioned this, okay? So my job was to help them start to question who they thought they were. There's more to you, you know.
There's
Jamil,
more to you, yeah.
Than the fact that you're a dope fiend, which
right.
you are, of course.
But you are, yeah. I'm not. You're not like saying they're not. You are, yeah. But there's more to you than that. Okay, we've got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Okay.
If you suffer or know someone that suffers from back pain, knee pain, or any other chronic or sports-related pains, you need to visit lapingoproducts.com. Dealing with pain can affect every aspect of your life, which is why our products are designed to bring you real relief. Our products are not only easy to use, effective, and safe for the entire family, but our prices are competitive and offer a complete satisfaction guarantee. Visit lapingoproducts.com. Real life solutions for pain-free living.
AlternativeLifestyleProducts.com is your gateway to over 500 products ranging from herbs to pain relief products, health, and well-being. AlternativeLifestyleProducts.com is dedicated to educating and empowering you to make the best possible informed decisions about what products you can use to improve your health and well-being. Visit AlternativeLifestyleProducts.com and bring about change in your life.
And we're back.
Okay.
So, George, when they were under the influence, did you find that any particular time that based on either a chemical problem or something within their brain that may have changed their behavior?
I'm not trained in medication. I don't know how medications work. I'm not sure that psychiatrists know how medications work. Now, if you're going to ask me, I was so against medication, okay, because of what I saw at the prison, at the hospital, where people were over-medicated and turned into what I said were zombies, okay, who couldn't even question anything really, or challenge the system or say, wait, you know. So I was so against medication that I made a mistake with my own daughter. My daughter clearly early had a learning disability. She was not perceiving the world in ways that were useful for her. She had fine motor problems, gross motor problems. My wife, who went to school to become a learning disability teacher back then, when she was a kid, that was over 40 years ago, actually diagnosed my daughter with that problem, and then we got help for her, and she eventually got through grammar school and high school. She went to college, etc.
Is it one of the things going on now, the ADD or Asperger's or?
Right, yeah. Well, she wasn't Asperger's, but she had to learn. She wasn't perceiving the world in appropriate ways. Her head was always tilted. You know, her vision seemed to be off. Her fine motor core was off, okay? But, you know, with the help that we gave her, and really my wife mainly, she eventually got through college, you know, and became a recruiter and all of that. So, but during the period when she was suffering, again, as I was so against medication that I made a mistake. I should have said, Brenda, I think a little bit of Ritalin, just a little bit. I was so scared of medication.
Right.
That a little bit of Ritalin may have helped you focus a little bit better, because she's totally disorganized, right? Even today, she has an organizational problem. So I made a mistake with that. So now when I see patients or clients, as I said, I call them, and I feel that some medication would help calm them down, okay? Help them refocus so they can do psychotherapy, I recommend a judicious amount of medication from a psychiatrist that I know. But please take the minimal amount, start off very small, and then see if that helps you. Okay? So I've changed my position on that over the years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to give you a little story I have. Back when I was in my teenager, I had a friend. We were, in school together. And when we finished high school, we went to the spring break down in Florida. Mm-hmm. At that particular time, the only thing I knew about him, let's say in his private life, was that his parents had split up kind of recently, and he was living with his father. And his brother, a younger brother, was living with his mom. Mm-hmm. Now, he never brought up. I mean, we were guys, guys don't talk much about anything. So, I just thought he was a happy-go-lucky type of guy. He was, he was doing a lot of weights. He was a very strong kid, but very nice and quiet, otherwise. Anyway, when we came back from Florida, we decided to go to a camp out near Detroit, and this was kind of an area where they had three campgrounds. One was like for the teenagers, one for families, and one for sort of couples and mix. Well, we couldn't get into the teenage ones because they were already full, so we ended up in the family campground. Again, there was maybe about 8 or 9 of us, so we kind of split up and went in different ways to meet people, and like what most young people do. And one point when we came back to the camp, he started acting really weird, unusual for this type of individual. He started acting like, I'm God, I want to, jumping on top of cars and acting really, really bizarre. So I kind of asked the other guys that were with him, I said, did you guys do anything? Did you take any drugs, whatever? Right. They said no. All they did was they met some girls and they passed, one toke around, meaning that one puff each individual. Right. So I'm thinking now, I'm young. I'm only like, 17, 18 years old. I'm thinking to myself, if they only did one puff, what could possibly go wrong in that? Right? Well. But, he started to get worse and worse as time went on. Yeah. He started reacting like very strange, and it's almost like he didn't know what his surroundings were at the time. He was being God, he was big, he was powerful, he was all this and that, real delusional type stuff. Anyway, I went off for, I don't know, maybe about 20 minutes. The next thing I hear is police cars coming over. Yeah. And, we get called back. The police says we have to leave the place. So he's still jumping around on top of the car, ripping his clothes off, still calling himself God, whatever. And all this behavior, we don't have no clue why this is happening, right? Yeah. So we get in the car. I tell a couple of my friends, I said, make sure you hold him down because, he was acting really bizarre. Like, he wanted to, almost hit you or do something, right?
Yeah, he was having a psychotic episode, yes.
Yeah, so, I was, scared, and I was going to be the driver, right? So I just booted it back. But we get maybe about 20 minutes from home, which is about an hour or so later, an hour and a half. And all of a sudden, he says to me, hey, what are we doing down here?
Wow.
Right?
Interesting story.
And I said, what do you mean, what are we doing down here? Didn't you know what you did over there?
You're God. You should know these things.
Yes, right.
He goes, what are you talking about? It was like a light flicked out or flicked in,
Right.
And like nothing happened. He did not remember one single iota of what he had done. So I bring him back to his father's place, and I said to him, I'm going to hang around here, and I explained to him what had happened. And his father said, I have no clue. He's never had this kind of problem before, right? So, so then we went on for a few months, and then he met a girl a few months later, and again, she must have gave him, a couple of puffs
hits, right?
of something, and same behavior again.
Right, yes.
And this time, he went way out of his way. he went out and he made a nuisance of himself. He took his clothes off, and the police, charged him, and so on and so forth.
So
to make this long story short, he ended up being charged numerous times by the police. Every time he would take a puff, never mind taking an extensive amount of anything.
Yeah, right.
He got charged by the police numerous times. They took him to mental hospitals, which of course was the wrong thing to do because he wasn't a mental problem that he was having, right? And nobody identified that when he was doing a drug, the chemical reaction that was already in his brain was affecting it in such a way to cause him the psychotic behavior.
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah, I believe that.
And eventually, he ended up in a criminal type mental hospital, which within a week, they claimed that he committed suicide.
Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, that's a tragic story because no one asked the right questions, right?
That was...
no one asked the right questions.
And I find with most psychiatrists that I've worked with many, they miss the physical problems that may be there, but they may be in a very small way.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's a very interesting story, irrelevant to a family that I'm seeing now who has now a 29-year-old daughter who's totally paranoid. And I believe that her paranoia and her mental disturbance at this point was probably precipitated by some drugs that she took at Sarah Lawrence College and continued even after she graduated, and I think it was fed by her brother, who would give her pot. Right. So we have a paranoid young lady, scared, and thinking that all her friends hate her, etc. And her brother gives her pot on top of that. And so I clearly told the family that you better get your son, clearly out of the picture because he's feeding, because I don't think her brain can, she is so vulnerable right now that anything you do to her brain is going to make it worse. Yeah, and I do think that happens with a lot of people.